Well, hi Patty, and welcome to Dad's Diner. What I'm going to do is show you a real quick and easy, it's a substitute for tuna fish salad or chicken salad, and it's a lot more economical and actually more nutritious. And it's based off of chickpeas, and I have two different sizes here. I'm going to use the small size, which is about a 10.5 ounce, because I'm only going to be making, well, it would kind of depend on how many people you plan on serving or how many meals you want out of this. And making up a batch of chickpea salad instead of the tuna salad, it goes much further than the tuna does. So only for myself today, I'm going to be using the smaller size, 10.5 ounces. When you compare that to the can of tuna fish, there's about 5 ounces of tuna fish here, 10 ounces of chickpeas here, so you're getting twice as much in a can, and this can of chickpeas is actually about half the cost of the can of the tuna fish. From a nutrient standpoint, they're both very similar in terms of, from a serving size, in terms of the calories, the fat, and I think the sodium is going to be almost identical between servings of both products. Difference is that there's an extra 4 grams of, or 3 times I'd say, the protein in the serving of chickpeas than there is in tuna fish, and there's 7 grams of fiber in the chickpeas compared to no fiber in the tuna fish. So from a nutrient standpoint, there's a lot of justification for wanting to use the chickpeas as opposed to the tuna fish or chicken salad. So first thing to do is to, let me show you first the ingredients here that I'm going to be using. There's not a lot. There's just some celery, there's some onion, we've got a little bit of salt, pepper, there's some chili powder, and mayonnaise, and a little bit of Dijon mustard, the Grey Poupon. Anyhow, let's first start by taking the water out of the chickpeas and putting them in the bowl here, and I'll be right back. So here's the chickpeas into the bowl. They've been drained, set aside. Now you can use a couple of different techniques to mash up the chickpeas. You can use any different type of potato masher. I don't know if you have any of these. So I'm just going to use the fork, and that actually works quite well. It takes a little bit of time just to smash these down and just work your way around the bowl. So here we are with the mashed up chickpeas, and total it may take you a minute or so to actually mash up all those the chickpeas in a small packet size. The next thing to do is to take for each can of chickpeas that you use, if you're making just like one can, you'd use like maybe 1 to 1.5 stalks of celery, and maybe about a quarter of onion, maybe 1/8 to a quarter of an onion. We can start with the onions, and I'll show you one way that it's a little bit slower than actually chopping it up perhaps on the board, but it actually works pretty good. And it's just a matter of making cuts without cutting all the way through. So you rock the knife a little bit and use a knife. I mean, a big knife. You can use the small one, but they're a lot more challenging to actually work with, I think. And this just gives you a lot more for your effort of a good, sharp, big knife. Be careful you don't cut yourself. So you turn it sideways now, turn it 90 degrees to what you had before, and you're just pushing the knife down into, rocking the knife a little bit down into the onions. And you're making very uniform size pieces of onion, and so you just make sure your fingers are out of the way on the back side, and you just start slicing through, and you've now got good size, uniform size little pieces of onion now. For the most part, I went a little bit too far. Pull these long pieces out. So you can cut those up, and then and that's probably about 1/8 about 1/8 of an onion. So now we're going to cut up the celery. And there's no one way to cut up celery. I'm just cutting them into about equal lengths so that when I cut through them, the pieces will be relatively similar size. And if you cut like this, you kind of want to keep your fingers out of the way, and you tilt the top of the knife, this part of the knife, back toward your fingers so it's kind of at an angle here, so that you don't cut the tips of your fingers off, which with a sharp knife is not hard to do. So these can go in there. And I might want to add just a little bit more onion and maybe do it the old-fashioned way. Which is to just chop it up there. All right, now for the mayonnaise, I really can't tell you exactly how much to add. Let me get some out of here. Kind of go by feel. Well, by sight, I should say. So that's maybe one big rounded tablespoon so far. See how far that goes. And you don't want to add too much, and it's like all of a sudden you're adding mayonnaise and things are going along good and you think you're getting there, and then you add another big scoop and it's way too much. So work it in good to make sure each batch of, or each addition of mayonnaise, to make sure that it's a consistency that you want. Now some people might stop there, that may be fine for you. So but I'm going to add a little bit more. I like it a little bit more mayonnaise in the recipe. And we're also going to be adding some Dijon mustard to this, so that's going to be adding some more, making it a little bit more or less dry. So you add about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. So stir that up. Put that out of the way. So there's that so far. And take a little bit of salt, and you just kind of salt to your own taste, and I really can't tell you exactly how much to put in. There is salt, a fair amount of salt that's in the brine or in the liquid that the chickpeas are in, so they're going to have some there. But you can add a little bit there, and then the pepper. You never want to add too much salt. Of course, I'm adding pepper while I'm saying that, but salt really does enhance the flavor, the overall flavor and sensation on the tongue of food. And so this is all kind of hit or miss. And just a little bit of this is Mexican style chili powder. So any chili powder you have, just a little bit of that in. A little bit of shaking of that. It's probably more than a pinch, but again, that's up to your tastes. And the last ingredient that I like to add, like I add it to tuna fish, and I'm going to add it here because I think it helps take the edge off the taste of the tuna fish, the fishiness off the tuna fish, and it also, beans and peas, and beans especially, have a little bit of a characteristic of dirt to them in their taste. So I add a little bit, and I just kind of do it by eye here, but I'll start with a teaspoon of, this is just granulated sugar, and put that in. So I guess maybe a teaspoon is about what I would use on that. So that's about how much I would pour in on my own. That's just going to take, it's not going to give it a sugary sweet taste per se, but it's going to take the edge off the bean kind of if you really like that bean, I kind of call it a dirt, earth kind of a taste. So let me give this a little taste and see what it might need. That's actually really good. And that's all there is to this. Get yourself some bread. And make yourself a quick sandwich. You can put some lettuce in here if you like, or spinach. That would be my preference. Or you can just put it together like this for a quick sandwich, and you have a lot left over for additional meals. So it's something that you can make in a very quick, very short time it takes to make this, and it can last for several meals. Put it in the refrigerator and you're ready to go.